Welcome back, everybody. MSP Confidential. I have a wonderful guest today in Timm. We find ourselves in Dallas at a conference here, and so we've had conversations in the past, namely a very interesting LinkedIn post where I commented for fun about how many conferences you attend, Henry, and you came back with a dissertation, quite literally, on how tactical you are with conferences. And so maybe I thought we'd start there. First of all, well, welcome to MSP Confidential.
Thank you for having me.
Taking a bit of time to hang out.
Yeah, no. Thank you very much for including me. I know that we've kind of gone back and forth a little bit about this over time, but yeah, always a pleasure to get to talk with you.
Yeah, man. So on this conference going stuff, it's fascinating because we see a lot of the same people coming to events time and time again. And I think some people kind of perfect a bit of their go-to-market at the conferences and so on. They find out that there's some specific things they want to do to leverage their time better, to make connections, to have conversations and so on. But there's also a lot of people that go to conferences for the very first time and find themselves a bit, whiplash, trying to figure out how do I make this worthwhile? How do I get some ROI from it? And in that dissertation on LinkedIn, I think you had some excellent points and thought maybe you could start there with some of those things that you think about before going to every conference.
So I have kind of a unique position given that I'm not just representing my MSP when I go to a lot of these events. There's different reasons where I may be there. But I think that there are a lot of core reasons regardless of that kind of underpin selection of those conferences and how you spend your time. For me, a lot of it starts with the expectation that I don't know everything, and that there's truly no ceiling to a lot of the things that I am exposed to. So typically I try and find things that bring me outside of an echo chamber, that take me to different ecosystems that I would typically be. Whether that's geographically and focusing on, like I know we've run into each other at events overseas, or if that is product-centric ecosystems. But I think there's a lot of power in the humility of approaching these different communities that exist out there and trying to learn what you can from each of them.
Well, maybe humility and curiosity kind of go hand in hand. Do you think there was a point where you maybe pivoted into the curiosity or leaned in a little bit more? Can you identify sort of a moment when you're like, I think I got to make more out of this?
Yeah, I think for me it really came. So I started attending based off of a random invite that I got to a London Tech Week conference. Over a decade ago now, and I wasn't sure what to expect. They had a little MSP area of focus for the event, but the event primary focus was more generalized enterprise IT, and it was kind of a smack in the face of like, oh, there's all these other things that exist out here. It also was a great excuse to, of course, travel overseas. And make some friends over there. But learning the different approaches and the different go-to-market strategies that different geographic areas have, as well as having that perspective of enterprise and how they look at things. I mean, MSPs are kind of poo-pooed a little bit in that space, but I think that's changing as people get into more co-managed situations that MSPs are stepping up, and I think enterprises doing a better job of understanding how to better leverage MSPs.
Yeah, I suppose part of the challenge is the barrier to entry to MSP is fairly low. Still, there's kind of no guardrails to say, you got to get to at least this level of best practices or institutional knowledge, if you will, before you go and start a business. And so we find ourselves kind of in this interesting cycle of always trying to bring people up the chain, if you will.
Yeah. To your point earlier is getting to an event like that where it's outside of the norm of something in our MSP space. I think big thing for me was getting exposed to these kind of revolutionary ideas. So like the first Da Vinci robot I saw there as far as medical surgery, they were
At Tech Week?
At Tech Week. The autonomous vehicles, this was over a decade ago, they were already showcasing them there. Brilliant doctor that I had seen present there that was going on developing an AI-enabled surgery so that he could combine kind of IoT, robotics, and AI in real time while he's doing surgery in third world countries. So he ships over the robots and the equipment and so forth. And obviously there's a ground team, but he's able to, he was specializing in separating conjoined twins, cranial conjoined twins, while he's in the UK, in these third world countries that otherwise wouldn't have these opportunities. And seeing that kind of mental shift on the approach to technology, I think, is a huge eye-opener when a lot of times that I go to these MSP shows and quite frankly, there's a lot of repetitive nature to the content that's out there.
Well, and it goes kind of in cycles too, right? There's hype phases, then there's the actual application, then there's maybe what follows after, which is democratization of it or what have you. How easy or difficult or interesting it is to kind of bring some of that technology view into conversations with customers, for example, because I imagine some of this stuff is pretty bleeding edge and maybe not ready for a generic discussion with a customer, but where do you find any kind of patterns there?
Yeah, I think for customers on the MSP side for me, a lot of them I'm able to kind of break down some of the traditional mindsets and approaches that they hear from another MSP that might approach them. So I'm able to talk things that are more important to them and their industry. So in this case, in the medical industry, I can talk about things that are on the forefront there that, yes, they may not be practical for widespread adoption at this point, but they know that I'm looking, that I'm attending these things that are pertinent to their field, whereas another MSP may just be talking about the latest EMR adjustment that's happening.
Yeah, interesting. Attending this many events, because you do spend a lot of time on the road, one might ask themselves the question, how does he get anything done? And so I think there's been maybe a shift in your approach to productivity, in your approach to managing your time. Tell me how you are managing a little bit of that.
Yeah, so I've gone through several iterations of trying to figure this out. So when I go to events, because I wear different hats, so I have the MSP, there is a community, the Tech Degenerates that I help run. I'm also doing a fair amount of consulting with vendors in the space. Oftentimes I'll be speaking at different events as well. So there's different reasons I may attend an event. But breaking those back into how do I manage my calendar around those things for productivity. What I've settled on is around this Trident calendar system with the idea that you effectively identify what your ideal year, ideal month, and ideal week look like, ideal day. So for me, I've gone through at the start of every year, I will lay out what I want those to look like and time block based around those. I've made some adjustments so I don't follow the Trident system entirely to the T. So for example, in the Trident system, the idea is that every day is consistent as far as your time blocks go. For me, I have theme days of the week based on which hat I'm wearing at any given point. So Thursdays typically are my day to be focused on my MSP solely. Wednesdays are primarily focused in on community and GTIA, my interactions there, and Tech Degenerates. Friday's kind of a half and half day for me. Tuesdays are a personal day that I ended up taking because of health issues I've had in the past here. And Mondays are kind of a generic meeting day as I need to fill in. So by breaking it out like that and allocating, it gives everyone around me kind of a better sense of how much bandwidth I have for whatever task they need me for or input. Ideally, though, and quite thankfully, I've got really good teams on a lot of these different fronts. So they're able to do a lot without me. So a large focus for me probably 2-3 years ago was trying to figure out how to remove myself and work myself out of a job in a lot of ways to empower people around me to make those decisions without me.
Living the dream.
I don't know about that, but yeah.
Well, like Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan until they punch in the face.
Yep.
And I imagine a lot of it is coming down to setting expectations with people. And I'm curious about that process of, you're stably in your theme days, and somebody new enters your ecosystem, and now you've got to explain to them how this works. And there's maybe levels of comfort with different people at different stages of the relationship. How do you approach setting that expectation of this is the time that I can give to this at this particular day or what have you?
So a lot of that is in our onboarding documentation, and I also have created playbooks for key positions in the various organizations. So they've got kind of a good understanding of how best to work with me and what my responsibilities are outside of what it may be just to them, just for some perspective on that side of things. And we've friend, business partner, Don Sizers, talked me into this a product that helps with the onboarding process that really is engaging for employees, that really walks them through a lot of not just the typical onboarding handbook type stuff, but kind of building out understanding your culture in the company and so forth. So
sure. Let me ask you maybe a tricky question about leadership in that sense, because I think with absence comes maybe the desire from the team to have more present leadership.
Yep.
And have you figured out ways to delegate a bit of that leadership culture to some extent, or how do you manage a bit of that with the absences and so on?
So I've certainly battled that over the last few years, trying to figure out how best to deal with that. I would say that thankfully a large amount of my team has been very empathetic of what my schedule looks like. So everyone has access to everything within my schedule. I do have an EA that acts as kind of a central point for a lot of those discussions that need to happen as far as time blocking for different projects. But as far as enabling each of those managers for me, a large part of it comes down to just making sure I have dedicated time that they know they can count on, that they're going to get with me in a consistent way, so that they know if there is a ongoing project that we are working on together, that they have that time, and then they all know that they can reach out to me directly at any time if obviously something more important props up and time sensitive.
Yeah, there's always a lot of those time sensitive things, and I wonder how long it takes the average person on your team to sort of settle into the pattern. Because I think the tendency is we love to get people's attention when we need it in the moment, right then, right now, type of thing. And so I think there is a propensity for interruptions. There is a propensity for reactive priorities and emergencies and stuff like that. And do people takes them a minute to figure out or settle into that?
Not too bad, because we do have it pretty well documented as far as the whole hierarchy of communication methods of how important something is and needs a response.
Okay.
So I get a lot of emails, and it very quickly, anyone that is trying to get a hold of me or communicate to me realizes that that is probably the slowest response you're going to get from me. So my team knows that if it is something that is timely, so my email, typically I'm going to get a response in probably 3 or 4 days. But a Teams or a text message, that's almost instantaneous from me. So they've kind of learned based on how important or urgent something is, what the best communication method is around those. And those are pretty well documented and defined in our organization.
There's a meme that comes across my social media feed from time to time, which is the coworker that sends you an email that says they need something, and then you just don't reply, and then they reply back saying, "Never mind, I figured it out." I guess that 3 to 4 day SLA maybe plays a role in helping people sort of figure out their own issues to some extent.
Yeah. No, and I want to stress my team has been fantastic about stepping up when there's questions. I'll have to share it with you later, but there's a list that we came up with of to give them some autonomy of, like, is this good for the company? Is this ethical? Is this good for our client? And so forth. And if they can answer yes to all of those, and I have to give credit to JP Kesey for the idea on this, because he's another MSP, brought it to me that's how he handled his enablement for his leaders, because it's, as long as they can answer yes to all of those things, then there's no reason they shouldn't be able to answer.
I love
make
that.
those decisions.
We had a similar core value at my MSP a long time ago, which I picked up during my time at Fully Managed when we had a culture leader, David Reeve, who passed away unfortunately, but he used to talk about it in the sense of it's making awesome decisions. If it's the right thing for the client, the right thing for the business, and the right thing to do, make the decision. It kind of unblocks a lot of the necessary or maybe need to go and get permission to do things. And so I love that. And then I saw not too long ago a video of a well-known influencer talking about the ranges of money needed to be spent before a decision had to be escalated to somebody else to approve. And so based on the position in the company, the employee could say, well, if it's going to cost $500 to solve the customer's problem, and you're at this level of position, you can go ahead and make that decision. I don't want to block anybody from solving a customer's problem. And then managers could approve up to 5,000 or whatever the number is. But it was an interesting way to sort of delegate decision making and empowering people to actually solve a customer problem without having to always escalate.
Yeah, and I think if you have issues with them still not or making poor decisions in those places, then either probably the employee may not be a fit for your culture, or you don't have good documentation in the first place around your vision and core values. I've seen that play out in a couple other MSPs in the industry, but I think if they can answer yes and you can empower them to make those decisions, I don't need to be involved in most things.
Yeah, it's liberating, isn't it?
Yes.
It takes a little bit of time to get the comfort range. I think this is maybe one of the things that MSPs are in their own way, or owners are in their own way for a long time, is so the need or feeling like they have to be involved in every decision to some extent.
Certainly, that's I've been 15 years into my MSP. At least the first probably 11, 12 years, I was in my own way. I was the issue of holding us back, of wanting to be involved in every little decision and interaction with the clients and so forth. So,
well, let me double click on that a little bit, because I think I talked to plenty of people in this format, and always the hindsight, it seems like an overnight change when people are talking about it. It's like, oh, we were used to do it this way and we did it this way. And there's always a lot of nuance in that mindset shift, or in that evolution, if you will. And so what was that evolution of delegation for you? Because I think it's a big deal for MSPs and their growth opportunity.
Yeah, I think for me it was just kind of like I was tired of running into the same wall. And finally clicked as kind of an aha for me of like, okay, I've changed all these other variables and I'm still the constant here. So it is
I might be
pretty
the problem.
pretty apparent that I'm what's holding us back. And so once I kind of looked at it that way, and okay, so what do we need to do so that I'm not in the bottleneck in a lot of these cases, especially as my time has kind of filled up more and more here the last few years. I'm more and more of a bottleneck and have less bandwidth for various things. So making sure that I have a clearly defined vision and the documentation to support that has been really essential. And it's still a process. We dedicate a time each week in the MSP side for SOPs for our managers to work on and submit SOPs, just because that's a constant mountain to climb.
Yeah, always something changing. I saw, I learned so much from my favorite educational medium, which is TikTok. Somebody pulls out, an old binder, literally dust bunnies on it, and it's called, documentation. And I think it's super important to maintain that and make a case for a cultural approach to maintaining documentation processes and so on. It's the thing that makes an MSP or any business turnkey to that effect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Back to a bit of the leadership piece. I think a lot of people that spend a lot of time out in the market, out in the industry, how they show up is a big part of the culture of the channel in many ways. And we see a lot of the same faces a lot of the time. And I think you've risen to a certain level of leadership within the industry. People look up to you as a person who's very involved with the community, obviously having started Tech Degenerates, but your role at GTIA, the awards, and such. And it's interesting to think about, the things that got you there and whether maybe it's a crutch for some folks to, like, maybe that's the destination, but it kind of isn't. Talk to me a little bit through a bit of how you feel your position of leadership in the community kind of plays out.
So I'm at a point where I think I've kind of made a decision that I want to be an advocate for other people in the industry to get better education and have better resources available to them, because over the years I've been doing it, I've made a lot of mistakes, and if I can help prevent that for someone else, and I've also run into a fair amount of paywalls that exist around information of, like, what does good look like. So if I can enable that in some way for other people, that's kind of been a key driver in a lot of things that I'm doing right now. So my work with GTIA, it's how do I take and build systems, frameworks, and resources there for MSPs to get access to, because GTIA is very open with all of the content that they have.
That is the mandate in many ways, right?
Right. And so if I can help create those things there to be shared out, then it's kind of a force multiplier, I think. And it helps solve selfishly the issue of the whole trunk slammer of these people that don't know better, that for one reason or another, that don't have the education or experience in the industry, and quite frankly would likely be the cause of legislation to pass on us. If I can help move the needle there selfishly, it's going to help my MSP and other MSPs in the industry.
To stay deregulated.
Yes. Yeah.
The GTIA, let's talk about GTIA a little bit. We both sit on councils on the GTIA. I think you're on CDAC, the Challenge Development Advisory Council. I'm on the SaaS Ecosystem Advisory Council. What was the path to being interested in GTIA? What was the thing that attracted you to GTIA, formerly known as CompTIA, for those maybe not familiar with the acronym? It's the Global Technology Industry Association. And how has the membership or the presence in the CDAC maybe informed a bit of your own personal go-to-market, so to speak.
Sure. So I first became a member of CompTIA probably 10 years ago, but was a dormant member. I wasn't very involved in any of the things they were doing. And probably 4 or 5 years ago, someone a friend at one of the shows mentioned communities, councils, and forums that CompTIA's GTIA puts on. And that was kind of my first interaction of like, oh, there's all this other stuff that they do beyond the certifications at the time.
Yeah.
And that kind of opened my eyes to that there's another avenue of and way that I could get involved and contribute back. From there, I got involved in the CDAC. Ray Orsini reached out and asked if I'd be interested in joining that, and kind of sponsored me into it. But it's been a great experience. We've got some great leaders in there, some great mindsets. Currently, our chair is Vicki Bruns, and yeah, she's just awesome at building out some accountability and some resources for the general community. So like right now, I know that they're working on modernizing a lot of the older resources that were CompTIA and bringing those forward into the GTI brand, but also updating them so that they're still relevant and pertinent. But they're also putting together resources. We just did a kind of business planning 101 for organizations and how to build out a marketing plan and some of those core foundational things that every business needs, whether they're a vendor or an MSP.
I love that. The SaaS Ecosystem Advisory Council does a similar thing in that, the walls between vendors are broken down, and there is a lot of vendor representation in the councils, I find, but plenty of MSPs are also present, of course. And I love how everybody collaborates, removing all the competition, turning into co-opetition perhaps, to produce assets and resources that are truly to help the community. And that's been, I think, the single most fulfilling thing about being a GTI, at least personally.
Yeah.
I imagine the same for you guys.
Yeah, no, and that's kind of bled over for me. I'm also heavily involved in the cybersecurity world, and so I got involved in the cyber programs over at GTI and current vice chair-elect, or whatever phrasing they want to give it, for the Global Cybersecurity Task Force for them now too.
Yeah.
So kind of wearing dual purpose hats, but I know you've been involved in for a while over there, and
yeah,
it's what's kind of been the long draw for you?
I think that access to the community, and because it's one thing to be in the channel representing the company that you're with, and it's like you say, you kind of have to put a bit of the mandate stick down a little bit to truly collaborate and truly have conversations about the better interests of the community at large, which is a fascinating exercise. It's incredible just how kind of egos dissipate in the room. Mm-hmm. We're all kind of working together towards a better best practices model or some document or some resource that's really going to help people. I think that's the thing that keeps me involved. And I'll be honest in saying that for me, a lot of it is also seeing a lot of the people that are there who are now friends and colleagues. There's a little bit of FOMO every time of, I hate missing one of the events because it's where you see your people, your family in the channel, so to speak. So that plays a little bit of role. In fact, I think this is maybe one of the things that is challenging about time and productivity, is that every time you enter a new space or community, we tend to want to collect all the events and all the things that they put on. And it seems like after the pandemic, we came back with a vengeance on the in-person events. And so this is obviously now creating a problem for a lot of people, because there's a lot of events, like there's too many overlaps, like you can't be at everything. You have to start prioritizing, of course, but that means maybe sacrificing the presence in a community or another community and so on. I'm sure you come across this to some extent.
Yeah, very, very much so. It's the scheduling is very difficult nowadays. I started selfishly keeping a track of or a list of the events happening in the industry probably 4 or 5 years ago, and just seeing the explosion. So when I first started tracking it, there was maybe 150, 200 in-person events. This year, there's going to be over 500 in-person events.
Yeah.
Last year was something like 320. It seems untenable, both from an attendee standpoint as well from a vendor standpoint. I'm not sure how vendors are able to split up their resources, whether that's their teams or the budgets for all these shows. But from an attendee standpoint too, it's a diluted space. So then you have to try and pick and choose what's going to give you the most value as far as content and speakers, or some of those events that are just kind of de facto leading events that people, everyone is going to be at.
Yeah. I think there are plenty of events for the sake of having an event and not necessarily with a true mission, potentially. Obviously, a lot of vendor-specific events that are about their own product stack and things like that. Is there an event that truly stands out for you as the motivation to stay involved out there in the community?
I'm going to cheat and say the GTIA's CCF is still, to your point, it's refreshing to see a non-sales oriented event that is both educational as well as direct give back to the community, where people are, as you said, logos disappear and everyone's there kind of working on creating stuff for the greater good. So that's probably my favorite event to attend. Aside from that, London Tech Week is still probably one of my favorite events to go to, just because it's so far outside of the echo chamber of the MSP space.
Yeah, echo chamber, great point. I think there is a lot of folks maybe myopically focused inside of the industry in their own way, in many ways. Are there other things outside of the MSP industry specifically that you regularly consult or visit, aside from London Tech Week, which is obviously from a technology standpoint, but industries or verticals or things that are interesting to bring mental models across?
Yeah, there's some interesting ones in healthcare, or even ones that are tangentially related to the MSP space, offer a pretty good perspective. So a lot of the cybersecurity focused that are not MSP cybersecurity focused offer some great resources. I know RSA is next week. It's a great one if you can afford the time and cost of it. But I know I will also be at our big Vegas hack fest out there. So there's 2 weeks of cybersecurity events out there that are just not focused on the MSP space at all, and it's a good wake-up call because MSPs often pat ourselves on the back about how good we're at handling a lot of these things, and we got everyone through COVID, and how nimble we can be, but going to those events is very humbling.
Yeah, so much to learn, so little time.
Yeah.
You talked about data a little bit. Keep track of all the events. You have a massive database actually it's on the Tech Generous website, I think.
Yeah.
And it's almost overwhelming to look at it, if I'm honest, because it's easy to be like, oh, that sounds interesting. That sounds interesting. Before you know it, there's 75 weeks of events potentially that you can attend in only 52 weeks of time. So it's a challenge, but that's not the only place that you are passionate and obsessed about data. I think every year for the last few years, I've seen a year-end update on your communications data. And so tell me a little bit about that.
I use a couple different platforms to help me track how many phone calls, text messages, social media interactions, and so forth. And for me, it's kind of perspective and reflective for me to look and see how am I best spending my time? How are people trying to reach me? And what's the most effective? And kind of what new ways can I approach those to help maximize? So there are a stupid number of emails that come in. I try and have everything, of course, go through your typical spam filters and mail rule flows and so forth. But it's still a lot. Pull up the actual numbers for you, but it's daunting. So figuring out how to come up with better rules and ways to deal with that is always kind of a reflective thing for me.
Was there something that maybe surprised you when you first started looking at the data? Unexpectedly?
One of the tools allows you to see kind of a centric view of what email addresses or the TLD for the companies that are interacting with you in kind of a graphical way, so that you get a map of your communication circles. This is only on email, but it does give an interesting view of who may be taking up more time than others. Oftentimes it's very clear and apparent, regardless of looking at the data in that way. But I've definitely identified some time vampires that are out there that through that data analyzing.
Well, let me ask you maybe about the gut and feel versus the hard and true data, because I think a lot of MSPs navigate their business with gut and feel. And we tend to say things like, oh yeah, it's been super busy, or this is how we've been experiencing this situation, or we inflate the experience of one person to feel like it was 100 people. And so I'm curious if there was maybe a mismatch in realities from comparing data with how you had the gut and feel of certain situations, or if you found it to be fairly aligned.
No, I think for the most part, I think it all gets back to perspective, because 4 or 5 years ago, I would think 100 emails in a day was a lot.
Oh boy, those days are long gone, my
yes.
friends.
and now looking at the trajectory and tracking those numbers over time, it's like, oh, you poor sweet innocent boy from 4 or 5 years ago, like you had no clue. I think the gut side of things is limited by your past experience, certainly by the numbers that I'm seeing nowadays, I did not have a good gut instinct years ago of what busy truly was.
Yeah, I feel like I go through cycles of unsubscribe rampages, and because we're human, we go through phases of interests in certain things, topics, verticals, and so on. And so I'll be interested in go to market one particular week for whatever reason, and I find a bunch of resources and end up signing for stuff. And I'm at the point some days where I have 75 to 100 emails before I even get to my computer.
Yep.
And so it just goes downhill from there, of course. And so I end up going through these interesting cycles of just going to be like, unsubscribe to everything because I just don't have the bandwidth for it. And then it slowly creeps up again. And then, I go through that phase, and I'm curious if you go through this to some extent.
Yeah. Inevitably, there will be some new technology or something that catches my eye that I want to be more in the know about, and we'll deep dive. And of course, then that marketing data gets out there, and that's kind of always a constant battle. I have picked up on a couple tools that have kind of like helped mass remove a lot of those newsletter type of things or marketing emails. But I've also leaned heavily into data broker removal services and things of that nature to try and keep a lid on some of it. Certainly not by any means perfect, but like I still probably, with any given hour of the day, there'll probably be 300 to 400 if I don't look at my phone, 300, 400 notifications that'll come across in that hour.
Ooh.
So some of the things that for my own sanity that I've done, like I stopped wearing a smartwatch because I don't need that constant buzz going on, and kind of taking back some of like, okay, I'm going to look at these at this point. To the earlier discussion about time blocking on the calendar, I've got set times that's when I'm going to look at those emails, because if it's truly an urgent thing, people know the other methods to get a hold of me.
Now, the relationship that clients of MSPs have with this challenge is interesting to think about too, because, as IT people, we're dogs with bones in many ways, and we're going to get to the bottom of the issue that's annoying us and find the solution. But the end customers often, don't have the know-how, or don't have the time, or just are too preoccupied with other things in their own business. And I'm curious if you come across situations where they're truly drowning in just the communication overflow, so to speak.
Yeah, certainly have run into that. Data broker removal services are certainly something to assist in a lot of that, but sharing how I do my workflows with them typically is also a good way to assist. I don't know that I've got a silver bullet per se. I have been working on with a few people on a VIP security dossier that we would provide out to end user clients, and our initial idea was actually for MSP owners in the space to help them realize what threats truly are out there to not just the security side, but to the time and productivity side of things. And as we were kind of going through it, it was like, okay, well, this truly applies to anyone that's a business leader, but manager or what have you is. We're working on trying to come up with a product. The idea is that will we're going to try and roll it into a free product that's available for people, just so that they can get a good grasp on what threats are out there.
Very cool. Is this the thing that the thing you wanted to tease?
No, there's something else cooking in the pipeline as well.
What can you tell me about it?
I can tell you that there is a lot of opportunities that I get presented with, whether that's speaking, consulting, jobs to assist other MSPs. And I want to ensure that everyone has access to those same opportunities. And so I've been working with Dawn and David Sizer on building something that will allow people in the industry on all sides to kind of meet in the middle. Very
cool. Well, I look forward to that. What's the timeline here?
If we're able to meet everything that our goals and milestones, I would say probably IT Nation Connect would probably be where
early November. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Very neat. I want to maybe loop back to the conference going as we sort of maybe get ready to wrap up this conversation and head back into the vendor halls. But what advice might you give somebody perhaps looking to attend their first conference, or maybe hasn't perfected attending conferences to achieve maximum ROI, or really feel fulfilled from attending an event, that they could be looking at, thinking about, or doing?
Sure. First thing I'll call out is the Channel Development Advisory Council for GTIA is actually putting out a event goer guide, both for vendors and for attendees.
Awesome.
That should be coming out, I believe, in July, if all goes well there. But from what I've seen of that so far, it'll be a great resource for people to get access to for free. Aside from that, I would say make sure that you're going with a purpose. A lot of people are attending, I think, a lot of these events for the party and for the networking. But have a clear objective of things that you want to get accomplished while you're at the events, whether that is the education that is presented. I know that there are a lot of events that are out there that unfortunately have a lot of sales pitches.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that they're necessarily a bad event. There could be other caveats to why someone might want to attend those. So going with a clear purpose and understanding of what your goal is and objective out of that event.
I think the hallway track, as I call it, is a very intentional purpose. Or maybe not intentional in the sense that people don't make a plan to meet up specifically to have a conversation about issues or things or challenges they're having in their business, but it happens very organically. And I think this is probably the number one thing people will say about an event that they attended that they got a lot out of is, oh, I just love the conversations I had with peers or other people in the industry. And it's really hard to maybe processize that to some extent, because that's just it. They just happen organically, and that's kind of where people get a lot of value from these. Have you found a way to box up or package a bit of that hallway track to some extent?
Yeah, quite honestly, that's what led to the Tech Degenerates forming. Is it started as a way for us to try and keep those hallway conversations going outside of the events. And so obviously we it started a group chat that quickly exploded. I think there's a couple hundred people in there just seeing messages in this group chat fly by before we realized that, okay, this probably needs to be turned into something more formal.
Yeah, some structure.
In general, I would say going to these events and picking out those times of, I know that there's certain key people at certain events that I want to talk to, and I'm going to find time to speak with them. So I know at this event I had kind of a hit list of people I was going to try and find in the hallways one way or another to sit down and at least get time scheduled.
So does the Trident system go out the window when you're at an event, or have you replaced one of the theme days with conferences?
It does go out a bit when I'm at an event.
Yeah.
I try to make up for it in the evenings as best I can, but a lot of these events you're there and in the moment, and so the days are long, and so not everything gets done, and I end up playing catch up a fair amount, like everyone else, I think.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, this is an interesting thought around standardization that I kind of get to a lot. In the space we're in, there's always a gray area in everything we do. And it's we like to be very binary about things in general. And I think in our industry, you're going to do all in or not do it at all kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I talk often about Ray Dalio's book, Principles, where he talks about this concept of struggling well and, being comfortable in that gray area and finding ways to not lose your way, but be able to be comfortable with a little bit of ambiguity and disaster, because it's just going to always come your way. And so is this, ambiguity in the gray area a place you're more and more comfortable with?
I've become more and more comfortable with it, and slowly been able to get away from the
absolutism.
Yeah. So it is something that certainly I'm starting to be more open and comfortable with.
Yeah. Well, Henry, thank you so much for hanging out today. It's always invigorating to talk to you, because there's so many things that I think we could be doing better overall. And you're a shining example of the productivity piece, the intentionality around the events, which is a big part of our community. And so thanks for hanging out and sharing a bit of your experiences there.
No, thank you very much for having me.
Yeah.
It's always a pleasure to sit with you.
Well, folks, this has been MSP Confidential. Thank you so much for joining us. We're on the air every Friday at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. This has been Henry Timm, CEO of Phantom